Welcome back to The Watch, and here is my Dragon's Dogma First Impressions review. I've not been able to play it like extensively, but I am deep into the game and enjoying it. I'm about 16, 17 hours into it. And as a massive, and I mean massive Dragon's Dogma 1 fan, I played that to death. I played it when it was first released. I played it again on the re-release for the next console, which was the Dark Arisen release. And then when it was released on Steam, I played it to death again. And so it is actually, Dragon's Dogma 1 is my all-time favorite game. And I have been waiting for the sequel for a very long time. I can't believe it took them so long to do a sequel. Yet at the same time, with it being released now, I get to enjoy, it being released with such high graphics. But there are issues. It's not all, walk in the park, sunshine and daisies. So I'll talk about my issues, talk about some pros and cons. But to begin with, right away, it's a very good game. As a massive and very... what's the word? Where I have high expectations, and so I was a fan that would have been very difficult to please entirely. So as one of those types of fans, I can say this is a Dragon's Dogma game. It is it feels and plays enough like Dragon's Dogma, where yes, this is it, and even getting sucked in to those big epic battles. And so there's been a couple of battles where it's a challenge. You got to play carefully and strategically, and because I'm one of those OG Dragon's Dogma players, already aware some of the strategies putting into place, that I was taking on monsters much more difficult to my level already and winning. In fact, I haven't died once yet. Actually, wait, no, I have died once, because I was really low level and I got jumped by a higher leveled hobgoblin in a cave. You might know the one if you played the game, and it one-shot me out of the blue. But outside that, so the big battles, haven't died in any of the big battles. And yeah, took out a griffin and, of course, Cyclops. It was a griffin and the first ogre I came across. Those were the big fights. And they were fun. They were the Dragon's Dogma epic, where you had to, really focus on the strategy, hit the weaknesses, be very careful of your positioning, and pay attention to the timing to avoid the big hits. And because the other thing is, a lot of the fights, right, the monsters are using the same strategies, right? They have the same kind of movesets with being expanded upon with some additional things. And so it feels exactly like Dragon's Dogma, the way that you want, as well as with some improvements here and there. And so fighting the ogre, I could tell when it was running in to do its double foot drop kick and knew how to get out of the way. And the battles were epic. They took time and strategy. And that's probably the biggest compliment you could give for a Dragon's Dogma sequel. That's the most important thing. The most important thing you would expect this game to nail. And it does that. And so as a result, I can give my recommendation of the game. It doesn't mean that it's got everything right. There are some really frustrating bits of content that have been cut from it, which broke my heart, okay? And there are some other issues that people are finding with performance. There's been concerns about the microtransactions. If you haven't seen it, I already have a dedicated video discussing the issues surrounding the microtransactions and Dragon's Dogma 2. So check out that video for the in-depth, discussion. And to just give you a very brief summary, it's mostly hot air that is taking advantage of certain people's ignorance. If people are unaware that all these items on the DLC, the microtransactions, are available in-game, they might end up buying it thinking that I need to change my character, this is the only way to alter my character, and they buy it. And that is taking advantage of people's ignorance, because all of that is available in-game. Not only is it available in-game, if you're on PC, you can even add mods to make them infinitely available at nearly no cost. And so if Capcom, and that's what I've done, so I like Art of Metamorphosis is just cheap and I can get as many times as I want now, and if Capcom does something to patch that out, I will be pissed, okay? Because then that's just like scum. I know, mods save games, and it's thanks to mods that it has overcome some of the bigger pet peeves, even though they're still there with mods, which I'll talk about in a second. Okay, so I will talk about like some of the annoyances I have, and then I'll end off with some compliments, because one of my concerns and worries about Dragon's Dogma 2 was that they would try and make a carbon copy of Dragon's Dogma 1 but leave out certain features and assets where it ends up being a lesser version of Dragon's Dogma 1 with just better graphics. That would have been so disappointing. There are elements of that, though. This is, they're trying to copy Dragon's Dogma 1, which is really good, and they have left out some features, which is bloody annoying, but then they have added other features and even been, added a bit of innovation in some of the elements of the gameplay, which are an enhancement. And so it's a bit of give and take. For instance, the character creator is bloody brilliant. It's not to say it's perfect. I have my issues with it, and there are some really weird absences in the character creator, but overall it is insanely detailed, especially the face. You can basically, if you're good at it, you can make a direct copy of real world people. And so I had fun making my main character have the face of my wife, and I got pretty darn close. And so that's heaps of fun. Couldn't do anything like that in Dragon's Dogma 1. A lot of options to mold the body in terms of shape and size. There are weird things, though, because it has a great amount of sliders, but like the slider that affects the width or girth of the waist, it's only one, where it would be good if you could actually affect the upper body width versus the middle versus the lower and sculpt an exact kind of shape, because that changes the way you want. You want like a big, muscly guy to have that Arnold Schwarzenegger look. You're kind of limited in some of the sculpting options, and character creation, I've spent hours on character creation, and so I love all the freedom and options, but there is so much freedom there. Then they have weird things absent from it. For instance, the textures that you can pick through for the muscle textures, when you cycle through the muscularity and even pumping up the texture visibility to the highest, you can barely see any difference in the muscle textures, the point where it's useless even having them. And when you also pump them up, sometimes it just makes them look awful, and the creases on the textures seem to be in the wrong place. And so that was really poorly done. The actual detail of the skin textures when you got really close ends up being a little pixelated and undetailed and doesn't look great. Modders will be able to make vastly better skin textures, I'm expecting, depending on how liberal Capcom allows modders to be with this game. And I hope they just let modders go to town. It'd be such a mistake if they try and restrict modding capacity on it just to maintain monetization or something like that, when I'm one of those whales that I think Capcom could target, right? I'm not going to buy a single thing of the DLC because I know I can get it all in-game, and I enjoy the game so much that I play it, I can get the resources to get it, and they're not super expensive in-game anyway, and then there's mods as well, and so all those things. So even as a die-hard, Dragon's Dogma fan that is willing to buy DLC, especially if there's additional armor and other, items that you can get, probably will be getting it because I just love the game so much, right? I'm not going to be buying any of this junk DLC because it's useless. And so if they just make valuable DLC, they could definitely clean up with big fans like me. And that's what they need to focus on, not trying to restrict and force people to buy this dog crap DLC that they've dropped by patching out modding capacity or something like that. That would be one of the biggest goofs that they could make with this game, because the game has potential. When I say potential, the core game is really good. And what they need to focus on is patching out some of these weird just flaws and errors, like some of the, weaknesses of the character creator. Like, for instance, hair selection. Carrot cut. There are limited colors to the point where if you're trying to make even slightly shaded green, it's mostly black or brown. You can't make a redhead. There's barely, the red color looks like this muted, weird purple. And so really limited in the color selection. And you know what they're probably going to do? It's probably going to be DLC to get a wider range of hair colors. This was kind of how they did it in Dragon's Dogma 1. You could get a wider range of colors as DLC with hair colors. They've done it before. All right, so if they do it, they might it's so scummy and everything like that, it's getting worse. Well, it's actually about the same as what they did before. The thing is, though, when they did the re-release of Dragon's Dogma, all the DLC that they had in the first release they included in the release of the second edition version, the Dark Arisen version. And I had paid for all the DLC for it already. And I think they did that as a safety. Feels like if everyone already paid for the DLC and they do the re-release and force people to pay for it again, that's even too far for them. So they just gave the DLC to everyone. And people like me who paid for all the DLC is like, well, what do I like? It's a waste then, isn't it? But at least I got to have it in the first version. So it'll be interesting how they handle some of these limitations, and they might actually give the expanded colors as DLC. The thing is, though, it's weird, like eye colors. Like you had a wide range of really bright eye colors where the hair colors are all muted. So it's weird limitations like that, which is odd when the character creator overall is phenomenal. And so one of the biggest disappointments, and I mean this is like a stab in the heart for me, it's like it was a core feature of Dragon's Dogma 1. Why the hell did you cut it? I have my suspicions. I'll share what my suspicions are. They cut layering out of the armor system for Dragon's Dogma 2. And this is a bit debatable as to how important this is for Dragon's Dogma. The most important thing for Dragon's Dogma is the gameplay and the combat and nailing that. And that seems to be what they focused on. But like the layering feature of Dragon's Dogma, right, for the armor was so awesome and so enjoyable, because one of the fun, most fun things about Dragon's Dogma is creating whatever character you want in this awesome fantasy setting. And so I made like copies of Aragorn, Frodo, Conan the Barbarian, Red Sonja, as well as countless variations of my own characters that I made. And I would just remake characters and do new playthroughs with a character that is in a new vocation or a new combat play style, in a new look that I could usually always achieve with the versatility I had. So Dragon's Dogma 1 had a layering system with the armor where it had an underlayer on the chest and an overlayer, and you could mix and match. And so you could find, oh, there's a chain shirt, I'll wear this chain shirt Hallberg, and then I can choose between having pauldrons on it, or an over-the-shoulder belt, or different types of armor, because it wasn't just pauldrons, it was, the different breastplates with a wide variety of breastplates and stuff. And some looked more barbarian-like, some looked more Amazonian-like, and it just had all these awesome options. And that was separate to the gloves. And then you can mix and match the gloves. And sometimes I would find these gloves match these boots really, really well. And then if I mix it, because there were these dark ones that had cut off at the arms, and it suited I had this one character she was like a noblewoman assassin, and then she would wear formal clothes, but when she went out venturing, she had this cool armor set, which had some finery to it, but then these cool gloves that made her look more assassin ninja-like. And so I built a whole character around the fact that there were these matching boots and gloves that just looked more athletic, right? And then I gave her a gambeson chainmail top. It was the red gambeson with chainmail underneath top, right? That just matched and fit really well. Okay, and so it was so much fun. They've gotten rid of it all. Originally, Dragon's Dogma 1, you had 5 slots, which was 2 on the chest, then hands, and then you had 2 on the legs. There was an underlayer, which is usually either underwear or pants, right? And then the overlayer was the types of boots, and sometimes the boots was integrated with a belt or a fold or something on the waist. And sometimes it could be a skirt, and there was other ways to mix and match and stuff, right? And so those were 5 armor slots. In Dragon's Dogma 2, they have reduced those to 2. Only 2 armor slots. Your upper body slot now is gloves and chest and the underlayer all integrated into one. And what's really frustrating about this is that there are some armor pieces where you can literally see the armor items from Dragon's Dogma 1 that have now been fused together that you can't separate. I recognize those gloves. I recognize that belt. Those have just been added to the chainmail Hallberg, and it's all been fused together. But they look like separate assets. It looks like they started out with the original Dragon's Dogma armor system that you could mix and match, and then they just, decided to cheapen out on it and just fuse it together to have set armor pieces. And as a Dragon's Dogma 1 mega fan, this was so frustrating because it really limits the armor and outfits that you look for your character, to the point where you're almost locked into a certain look if you choose a certain vocation, because the armor is really restrictive as to what vocations you can use. And so I was bummed out massively when I realized that, where I made a character that I wanted her to be a barbarian female warrior, okay? And I have, my pawn is, by the way, the pawn is SHADIVERSITY, so I made him to look like me, not identical, he's a younger version, slightly better looking. Right? But he's available. You can hire my pawn, SHADIVERSITY on Dragon's Dogma 2. I'll actually put the pawn ID, if you're interested, in the description, so you can look him up by the ID and hire my pawn. I need to repair my computer because the graphics card died while playing this thing, and I don't know if that's actually a result of Dragon's Dogma 2 because it is not well optimized. It shouldn't be. It was past warranty, which still sucks. Only about a month or two after warranty, it decided to die. And so I'm buying a new graphics card today. And so hopefully I'll be back online and leveling up my pawn. Anyway, is available. Made him to look like SHADIVERSITY. And I was hoping that there are some armor pieces that somewhat look like my armor and outfit from SHADIVERSITY. And I was hoping to make this pawn look like my actual self in the SHADIVERSITY videos. Doesn't look like I'm going to have the freedom to be able to do that. And I was hoping that they would add a feature, which seems to be completely absent, and that was a dyeing feature, that you can change the color on the armors, because then I could really make them look like SHADIVERSITY. And there's no dyeing feature, and then even worse, there's less flexibility in the armor, and I was like, gosh, this sucks. I got to alleviate some of my disappointment, thank goodness for mods. There is a mod which takes off the vocation restrictions for all armor, which enables any pawn or character to wear any armor thing in the game. When I saw that, I literally said, thank goodness. I was like, it gives me a little bit more freedom. Because there are some, armor pieces that is only restricted to the thief. I was like, but that kind of suits a barbarian look. I could use that. Couldn't wear it. Now I can, and I have a bit more versatility to making a character look like I want, which alleviated some of my disappointment. The really sucky thing about this, if you're on like Xbox or PlayStation, bad luck, you can't mod. Sucks for you, and you're restricted with this really limited feature. It's not a feature, it's a cut of a feature. They cut this, and what's it like? The layering system in armor is such an obvious thing that more games should do, but so few games do. And it felt like, because Dragon's Dogma 1 did it, it felt innovative. It made it more distinct, and it was a really cool feature. And so to keep making Dragon's Dogma, stand on its own to be better than all these other action RPGs, that should have been a feature that they kept, but instead they cut it. And now it's worse than Skyrim. Skyrim, you can pick different gloves compared to the upper body chest piece. Now it's all integrated. Gloves and chest, it's all one armor slot. And so the overall clothing armor slots you have is just chest, which are the gloves together, lower body, which is the boots together, helmet and cloak. That's it. Friggin' outrageous. I was so disappointed. And like I said, it was one of my favorite features in Dragon's Dogma 1, and I can't believe they cut it. And it feels like they cut it for one of two reasons, and I'm speculating here. One, they were just lazy, and it could also mean that they didn't have enough time in the development. It's got to be released this time. It's going to take too long to mesh all the different armor pieces, because it would be more complex with the more, diverse character creator. But then maybe not, because they already have to adapt to the different sizes of characters, but to make sure the outer layer is always on top of whatever underneath layer you have, where every single armor piece probably does take a bit of work and checking and alteration to make it not clip. And so it could, I don't know why they cut it, but it would have cut a lot of work doing it this more lazy way than what they had in Dragon's Dogma 1. And so either they might not have had enough time, or they were just too lazy and couldn't be stuff to do it. Another worse reality could be that if they restrict the versatility in the way they make your character look, they can then sell more DLC armor that has the way that people want their characters to look, and the only option they have left then is to buy the DLC. And if it's that path, that is scummy. That legitimately pisses me off. Okay? It's still an awesome game in terms of gameplay, and the core features are there. All right, other pet peeves I have with it are the more limited weapon selection with the vocations. Each vocation seems to only have one primary weapon, except for one of the future vocations. I think it's Wayfarer. I'm not up to that in the game, so I haven't tried it out yet. Still don't like it. My thoughts are that I felt they should have done, and I have this on there's a video on SHADIVERSITY where I talk about what I hope for Dragon's Dogma 2, and no dying. I was hoping they would expand on the armor layering. They actually went worse. They retracted on that, and then I was also suggesting it would work better if you actually your vocation is you can pick any weapon in the game, and when you pick up that weapon, you automatically use the weapon skill sets, and you can then equip any 2 weapons out of the game, and whatever weapon you decide to switch to, you use those skill sets of those weapons, and then that would essentially make you can have any class in the world, any vocation in the world. You still need to learn the skills and get the discipline for the individual weapon types, but you can mix and match anything. Because it's really fun to one of the things I loved about the Assassin is okay, I could use a bow and sword. Now it's a really cool combo. And it's the only class that allowed that. If you want to use a bow, you always have to use the dagger for the ranger and the strider in Dragon's Dogma 1. Okay? But having a second backup weapon was really fun because it enabled you to approach different weapons tactically. Do you want to do some magic damage versus full weapon, physical damage, mix, or anything like that, right? It did make the classes that had higher weapon choices more OP, like the Assassin. And the way that they would have been able to balance it is just have the vocations are determined by what weapon you use, and any character can equip any 2 weapons out of them all in the game. That would have been perfect. But instead, they have kept the vocations and made them more restrictive, and now it looks like every vocation does not have a single backup weapon, except for the Wayfarer. Again, I haven't played and reached that point in the game. And so I've unlocked the Warrior, the two-handed sword, and the Sorcerer. And again, all the vocations available, just 1 weapon. Bizarre. And it also just doesn't make sense lore-wise. When you're using a bow, you would always have a backup melee weapon of some type. Now it's just Archer. That's it. And they have the dagger separated in its own vocation with Thief. So I don't like it. I don't like it. It doesn't ruin the game, of course. It's still really fun, and I will be making different characters to try out the different weapon styles in these other vocations. And even if they unlocked and made you be able to use any weapon in the game, you find a style that you want to use for that character. And so you'd still make other characters using other weapon styles. But yeah, so the vocation system is worse in my opinion. Probably more balanced if every vocation just has 1 weapon. You don't have an OP vocation like Assassin. Mystic Knight could be OP, but again, Mystic Knight actually was still there, only had the shield and one-handed sword type of stuff. But I prefer Dragon's Dogma 1 vocation system. The weapon skills themselves, this is where one of the positives. The weapon animations are more diverse. The original weapon animations, Dragon's Dogma 1, were very specific, and they just replayed on himself with not a lot of change. The standard attacks are more normal attacks, so it doesn't look like you're replaying a specific animation over and over, where it's just like attack, 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 with some unique ones. The actual core skills, they work fine. There are some adaptations of the original core skills that aren't the same, but they work well enough, with some new skills that seem fun and diverse, which are good. And so I'm enjoying that part about it. It seems to be okay, they've expanded a bit on the weapon skills. Haven't got to explore them all. I haven't played all the classes. But that's pretty good. The controls are a bit more sluggish. I found the responsiveness in terms of turning and then being able to dodge attacks and everything more responsive in Dragon's Dogma 1 versus 2. So a little bit slower and sluggish. Also, jumping and grabbing seems to be a bit less responsive. But once you grab, the control you have while climbing is greater in this versus Dragon. So that seems to be an improvement. But the actual running, jumping, and grabbing is less, is harder to grab onto things, I've found. There doesn't seem to be a hard mode, which is annoying. One of the most fun things about they didn't have this on the original release. It was the Dark Arisen release. You could choose to play on hard mode out of the gate. I think on the first release, you could only play on New Game Plus or hard mode after you beat the game first. And so I wonder if it's a feature that you have to beat to unlock. I really hope they have New Game Plus, because that doubled the playability to nearly each round. You beat the game once. Okay, and you get certain, rewards for beating it, but then you start again on hard mode, and you start with the character on the level that you completed there, and then it's mega hard mode, and you complete it again, and you get new benefits and wins and bonuses and everything. And so I hope they do that again. I haven't heard anyone mention it's about, but it might be too early for anyone to have completed to find out. I really hope they do. Like, there's some interesting communal features that I think have been really good. The pawn system now has a quest system. So when you send out your pawn, you can say, do this or get this item, and then you can actually assign a reward to the player that gives it to you, which is awesome. I love that feature. I think that is a great innovative expansion on the system they had in the original game. And that's why I wish we could have had all the features from the original game and then innovative expansion ideas like this built on top of it. And that would have given us everything we love about Dragon's Dogma and then more, and make me love this game even more. At the moment, I like the game. It's really fun. It gives me the Dragon's Dogma play I want. But these limited kind of features and the loss of the layering system is such a big one. Dragon's Dogma Dark Arisen at the moment for me is a better game, just less graphics, more limited character creator, but the character creator was pretty darn, diverse in Dragon's Dogma 1. And so there are those issues with Dragon's Dogma 2, but then you see those innovative systems. So yeah, like the pawn quest system is pretty cool. I like that they added that. They have restricted rift summoning. I actually even thought that it was so bad that they had cut, being able to search specific types of pawns from the game. But no, they just cut it from most of the rift stones in the world. To get specific summoning, you need to go to a big rift stone in the main city and other rift stones like that. Then you can actually search up your friends' pawns by vocation, and also skills and other things. Because I take pride in making a good pawn. Like, it was like, all right, you want the good skills, especially a magic user pawn. Knowing what type of enchantments are beneficial for that stage in the game and making sure you have those enchantments. So early game, the type of enchantments I want on, say, a mage is, of course, healing, fire attack, and fire boon, because fire does the right type of damage. Again, goblins are usually weak to fire, as well as the slimes and stuff. And so crafting the right pawn with the right magic use and stuff like that. And so to me, like, having two boon spells, both ice boon and fire boon, is a waste. And so anyway, I take pride. I make sure pawns have the right, skills and everything. But then finding the right pawn with the right skills can be a pain, because not all of them have them. Someone's just like a mess. And then when you can't search for the right pawn, you're just left bottom of the barrel, and it was annoying. And I actually thought they cut. I was like, have they actually cut being able to search for specific pawns? That's a weird thing to do. But no, it's just by the summoning the Riftstone, and that's it. All right, big benefit, like improvement. The world is larger and more dynamic, and the like bridges can break, and in terms of finding things, interacting with the environment, there's more options there. Big improvement. And really fun and enjoyable are the way the pawns interact. They will actually talk to each other now, not just to you, and give comments, replies, dependent on their personality. They're more responsive in the ways that they help you. You can choose, it's like, I know where this is, where this thing is. Would you like me to show you? And you can choose whether they'll show you or not. And so just the pawn interaction is big improvement, really enjoyable. The graphics do look better. Problems with the optimization. Some people are really struggling to get higher frame rates. I did not see my graphics card taxing, and I maxed all the settings on this, and I had a 3090, and so it didn't seem like it was struggling at all. Then it decided to die while playing Dragon's Dogma, and I don't know if it's because of Dragon's Dogma. It shouldn't be. It would be really weird if it was just that. I think it was just, it was its time. And I was overtaxing it already because I use it for AI art generation and stuff. And that is, when you do some larger generations, it's very hungry for VRAM. And that could get the graphics card to turn on the fans a bit on those. And I've been doing AI art for a while. And so it might have just been that. It got worn out because I really do use it. And so while it was working, I'm not like one of those ultra, it dropped to 30 frames per second. I think there were times when it was lower frame rate and higher frame rate. I didn't really notice like starkly when it's there. But there was times like, hey, this is running on 60 frames. This is smooth, I could tell. But I didn't get any drastic performance drops to the point where it was like oh, it's so worse. I can't. It's unbearable. Didn't really notice any of that. I got one crash out of playing the game, and that was all. So overall, it seems to be mostly stable apart from that single crash. And so, yeah, but again, it's a big visual improvement, and I enjoy that. So those are my views and thoughts as a massive OG Dragon's Dogma 1 mega fan. And I can recommend it. It is Dragon's Dogma. Like I said, the most important aspects of how fun the combat is and the style of combat, the way that your skills work when you're fighting, how dynamic it is, the difficulty curve with the monsters, the way that you incorporate tactics, timing, and they have weaknesses and there are openings, and the interaction of the pawns, everything like the core Dragon's Dogma gameplay is there and for that I'm very happy as a Dragon's Dogma fan, and I knowing what I know now, I would still buy the game. The microtransactions isn't really an issue. It has mods that fix up a lot. It's not to say there aren't disappointments. There are some things that are cut from the features that are cut. The layering system, heartbreaking to see. Really frustrating that it's gone. I don't know if that's something they'll ever patch or improve. I think that might just be the state of Dragon's Dogma 2. Maybe they'll got such a... I'm complaining. Maybe if enough people complain about the cut layering system, they'll bring it back in Dragon's Dogma 3. But at the moment, what would I give it? 7 or 8 out of 10 for me, because it's got the core Dragon's Dogma gameplay, which is some of the best gameplay I've ever played. Dragon's Dogma Dark Arisen is a 10 out of 10, favorite game of all time. And so it has that, and maybe that means I was probably sitting on an 8 out of 10 for it. But we will see. I'll be playing this game to death because it has that core gameplay I love, and I'll see if my opinions change after on the other side. That'll be several hundreds of hours of enjoyable gameplay I'm looking forward to, and then I'll perhaps share my thoughts on it at that time. So thank you for watching. Share your thoughts in the comments below, what your views are on Dragon's Dogma 2, and as always, stay on watch.